everyone. And today we have a special guest on the Diary podcast, and it's Australia's leading media astrologer, Natasha Weber. Thank you, Astrotash. She's also known as Astrotash. How are you, gorgeous?
Hello, beautiful Alla. I'm really, really well. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being part of it. I'll just give a little bit of background to everyone listening. Natasha Weber, also known as Astrotash, as I introduced her, is an award-winning astrologer, celebrated for making astrology relatable. Absolutely agree with that because I
You?
know the very general, traits and stuff, but you really explain it easy for everyone else to understand it, which I absolutely love. You also
Thank
serve as the resident astrologer for Channel 7's The Morning Show, and you write horoscopes for Marie Claire Australia and Mamamia. Natasha is also the author, congratulations, by the way,
you.
of Your Celestial Compass, Astrology for Self-Discovery and Empowerment. Wow, congratulations on your book, and what an amazing book it is. I'm so proud of you. You've been working many, many years on this gorgeous journey.
Yes, I've been writing this book, or I was writing that book for about
We're now
7
resting.
years. I know it's but what's interesting is once you have finished it and it's published, I mean, a whole new level of work starts. Putting your
Absolutely.
baby and your ideas, all out there into the world. So, but
100%.
it's been a 7-year birthing process, and we all
That's
know
a long birthing process.
it is, and we all know that birth is hard labor, right? So
Yes.
I just went into that immersive space, and I loved it actually because I felt, really excited about sharing some of my ideas and doing it in a slightly different way to what I felt was already out there. And so yes, now it is out there in the big wide world.
And I actually remember you from many, many years ago when you were actually working and literally locking yourself off from the world to really put all your energy into this book. You were like, no, I've got to focus on this book. I've got it. And you literally locked yourself away for a lot of the time to get
Yeah, I did. I went into complete hermit mode, and
it.
I needed to do that. And if you know my astrological chart, you can see that I'm so capable of doing that. Sometimes I find it hard to come out of that space. I've got
Mm.
Mercury conjunct Saturn, which is all about your thought processes, and Saturn is about boundaries and focus and concentration, but it can be quite limiting and also self-critical.
Yeah.
But I have these two placements together, so I was able to just really go deep and isolate myself, which is very much a Saturnian thing. I mean, from my partner, from my children, from social life, what social life was going on? No,
What social life?
but I am a bit of a hermit, and I think that's a beautiful space to be in when you are downloading information. I mean, you probably resonate with this, Ala. You're receiving those downloads, and you're in that space where you're open to that. And if you've got a lot of distractions going on, either socially or personally, then it can make it difficult to cipher through the noise.
100%. Let's go
Yeah.
back a little bit. Let's let everybody know what got you on this journey. Like, I mean, were you always interested in astrology, or did something trigger it? You know how there's always something that gets us into what our soul is actually needing. So what
Yeah.
started you on your amazing journey?
Yeah, that is so, so true. I've always been interested in astrology, in psychology, but more so in the metaphysical realm. And that's because my mother is clairvoyant. Yeah, she does the automatic writing, and
Love.
my grandmother as well. So I come from that maternal bloodline. So that was kind of second nature to me. I'd sit around the dining table and my mum would be doing seances with the automatic writing. And I'd be there as a young child kind of watching. So for me, it was pretty, that was kind of just how we had a chat with the other side. So my mind was open.
Yeah.
Then I used to see, I don't know if people listening remember Karen Morgold. She was,
Yes, I used to
yeah,
watch her on TV.
yes,
Yes,
okay.
was it Channel 9 or 10? I can't remember which 10.
She was on Channel 10 for a long time on
Yeah,
Good Morning Australia with
that's
Bertie.
right. I remember her on that, and she
Yeah,
had this really angelic voice, and it was just
that's it.
really easy to listen to. Oh, yeah, I definitely remember her.
Yeah, well,
Now
she's a
you've taken
powerhouse.
over. You're now that voice. You are so pleasant to listen to. You have this
Oh,
beautiful voice.
I don't know about everyone hates their own voice, right? But I don't know.
We don't do negativity here. Mm-mm.
No, no, no. Okay, thank you.
I'm
But
going to pull you up
Karen,
on that one.
thank you. I appreciate that. But Karen moved from Channel 10 and then she went to 7 and she was on the morning show
Yeah.
for years. And so I used to watch her, loved her vibe, was hanging off her every word with the horoscopes as a child and then getting a little bit older. And then I decided I'm trying to cut this story short, but it's quite interesting because I did reach a personal crossroad. I was a ballet dancer and I was modeling as well and doing a lot of travel. Yes.
Wow. I can see definitely the modeling.
Oh,
But
well,
belly dance,
you
I
have
didn't know
a
you
life.
did that. That's amazing.
You
Wow.
have a
Get that
lifetime.
moving.
But then I just got to that point where I thought I need to do something else. I felt that calling. And I just didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew I had to feel that burning passion for it. That is one thing that I'm really big on. I've got a Leo signature in my chart, so I'm all about passion. It's our greatest motivator and our greatest reward when we really satiate that in life, right? So anyway, I was tossing up between a few different subjects and I was praying to the universe. I was praying so hard I could barely eat or sleep, quite literally. And then I went into Channel 10 to do a modeling job, would you believe it? I didn't really want to do it, but I kind of felt obliged. Another long story. So I went in there. On the way in there, I bought 3 books. I thought there'll be a sign in there for me somewhere. Please, please, God, send me a sign. And I ended up at Channel 10 and I said to the girls, the other girls there that I was working with, I don't think I'm going to do the shows. I want to study. I explained to them what I was thinking about. Astrology was obviously on my radar. Karen Morgold was there. She called me the next day because I met with her and she directed me to my school. But
Wow.
then what is so fascinating, and guys, the universe is listening and the manifesting was just out of control. So I started, on that path. And then fast forward 24 years, and I've done quite, a lot in the astrology space. That was my passion. I knew it as soon as I attended my first class. I'd chosen the right path.
Wow.
And then I've ended up last year, after 24 years, stepping into Karen's big golden shoes
Amazing.
and taking over that role on the morning show. And that was that everything I've done has come to me, has pretty
Yeah.
much
And full
landed.
circle.
It's landed in my inbox. So it's not like I, specifically went for that and hustled for it and
Yeah.
made it happen, which would be fantastic as well. But it really, like the universe, just brought that opportunity up when the time was right. So
And you
amazing.
mentioned something really important. It's when the time is right. It's not
Yeah.
about when we want it to happen. It's when it needs to happen for us. So we need to go through that journey. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, but I'm getting older. Like, when is it going to happen? Age is just a number humans made up. So when our soul
Yeah.
is ready for it, that's when it's ready for it. And you've just proven how, like 24 years later, how that happened for you. Didn't happen, 24 years ago. It didn't happen halfway through. It happened at that moment because that was the right time for you. And you felt at your best in your career as well, where you also, and also in your spiritual journey, where you were meant to be able to take that further and share it with the world, on TV, in Karen's shoes, like, hello.
I love everything you've just said there. You're so, so right. Timing is everything, but
Yeah.
it is to do with when you are ready. And often we think we are ready. Our
Mm.
minds are telling us we are ready. But in actual fact, if I had have been, I was thrown into the lion's den a little bit, and this is maybe something we can talk about later, but with the news horoscopes
Yeah.
coming off the back of
Yeah.
the morning show at Channel 7. I would not have been able to handle that and all of the criticism that came from the general public who weren't really ready for horoscopes being on their news,
Yeah.
on their primetime news. I would not have been able to handle that situation, I feel, if I had have been thrown into that at an earlier age and stage of my life. And I look back now, and everything's easy in retrospect, right? But you can look back and honestly see how your experiences, the relationships that you've been in, the situations and the challenges that life throws at you, how that prepares you for where you find yourself today. Everything has
1,000,000%.
meaning. Yeah.
1,000,000%, because
Yeah.
I always say that our soul prepares us for our future selves. So no matter how hard the journey is, no matter how much it doesn't make sense in that moment,
Yeah.
it prepares us for this moment that we're in today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap with tarot and astrology, because, in tarot, especially, in the Rider-Waite, they talk about fire, earth, air, water signs. So it very much, there's a big, beautiful overlap. So how do you find that? Do you delve into the tarot at all, or is it strict astrology for you?
Strict astrology for me, and that was one thing. I love tarot, and I've dabbled in it, on a personal level.
Yeah.
But I would never put it out there really to educate people on it or to read people, because I'm not an expert in it, and I'm just the sort of person that I will never speak about anything that I don't feel I have expertise in. I leave that to amazing you, because I love your tarot readings. But and in fact, when I was doing my podcast on iHeart, they really wanted an astrologer who also did tarot. They had this really cool little thing at the end where everyone would receive a unique tarot card according to their like the recording they were listening to. So you might be listening to the podcast at the same time as I might be listening to it.
Yeah.
We both receive a unique card, a unique reading. It was, I guess, like a digital robotic reading, but who cares? The universe is bringing it in through one medium or another. It was really cool. But I said to them, no, I'm not going to do that, because just what I explained to you. So they did get in a tarot expert just to bring that reading in as separate from my astrology. It was called Astrology Coach. It's no more though.
Oh, okay, but that would have been amazing at the time. Wow.
Oh, I loved it. Another brilliant experience. That was actually the stepping stone to the morning show, because that's how we connected through there. So there you go. It's all everything.
Yeah, it's all the puzzle. It's all part of that domino effect. That's how it was meant to be.
Exactly.
I'm quite like I said, for me, I'm not the expert in astrology. That's you. Your amazingness is the expert. And I'd love to ask some questions, which I'm sure a lot of other people want to know as well. You hear the sun, the moon, the rising signs. No idea. Can you give us the difference between this, between sun, moon, and rising signs?
Okay. So if I can just go back a step, and just talk about the birth chart.
Yes.
Of which the sun, moon, and rising are components of the birth chart. So everyone is born with a birth chart, which is basically a snapshot of the heavens at your exact moment of birth in the location, latitude and longitude that you were born. I am actually like all about the math as well. I love astrology because it's where math meets mystic, but I don't really talk about that in my everyday work because I totally lose people.
Good. Okay, I'm going.
Yeah, but okay, so and in that birth chart, it illustrates every planet in their respective zodiac sign, and then there's the mathematical relationship that everything makes to each other, and this all flavors the person that you are and the experiences that you're likely to have. Of course, we work with that. We work with the birth chart as a tool because we have free will as to how we not interpret, but manifest or just simply work with those energies that we're given. But then comes the sun, the moon, and the rising. So the sun in the birth chart and the sign it's in and the angles it makes to the other planets at the time of your birth. This speaks of your basic character. The sun is how we shine our light out into the world. It also represents our vitality and our life force. And this is where like sun sign astrology has become super popular because, the sun is the center of our solar system. All the planets answer to the gravitational force of the sun. And so this is why, we strongly often resonate with our sun sign or our zodiac sign or our star sign, as it's commonly called. The moon sign, though, that is, I'm kind of going in a weird order, but that's okay.
No, that's fine. I'm with you. You still got me.
Thank you. So the moon sign is a deeper layer to ourselves. It represents our soul, our emotional landscape. So look to the moon sign, look to the connections it's making to get inklings about that. It's also the divine feminine, how we nurture and care for others, how we mother, and it can also represent our mother in this lifetime and the relationship and the challenges that we have to learn from our mother or from mothering ourselves. And I'm kind of just going through this very basically.
No, that's fine. Yep.
The rising sign, which is otherwise known as the ascendant, and that is not a celestial body. That is the easternmost point, again, a mathematical point on the horizon at your exact moment of birth. And
Wow.
astrologically, your ascendant or rising sign represents, it's more to do with your personality. It's how other people perceive you. So it's kind of like the outer layer, but in saying that, that's to do with the personality, but in saying that, it is a very sensitive spot in the birth chart. So if it's triggered by, let's say, a full moon or a planet, we say transiting, but if a planet moves through the sky and it hits that spot, that rising sign spot, then we can experience quite definite events and effects from that. And it also has to do with our physical body and sometimes our health and our childhood as well.
So it's like your sun is your shine on the outside. The moon, was that right? The moon, yeah, is your soul. And then the rising sign is more like your energy. And that can be affected by other planets or what, is that right? Did I get that?
That's
kind of like in a layman's term kind of thing.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of describing it. Yes. So
it actually makes sense.
Yes, I love that. So also, people say to me, oh, so guess what sign? Oh, you're an astrologer. Guess what sign I am? And I think, oh, okay, here we go.
They always think we're magicians. It's like, when you say you're a psychic, oh, tell me what I'm thinking. What number am I thinking? I'm like, okay, I'm not a magician.
You would have heard that a lot, right?
Oh my goodness.
But in fact, an astrologer would be more likely to guess someone's rising sign than their sun sign, because that is more the first impressions, our personality. Whereas to guess their sun sign, you have to know their basic character. So you have to know them a little bit better.
So there you go, guys. Don't ask astrologists what signs.
That's right.
Because there's a lot more to it. So another question, how accurate is astrology in predicting major events happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, firstly, the astrology is always accurate. The astrology is always on point. However, there's a grey area of interpretation that depends on the astrologer interpreting it. So, that's where the predictions can be different.
Yeah.
But it's more complex than that, because it's not that one might be right or wrong. There could be layered. There could be both of those things happening at the same time. And then it depends if you're talking about world predictions or predictions in someone's chart.
Like major life events, like maybe in someone's chart more so.
Yeah, okay. So in that way, I prefer to approach that by saying, here's what's available to you, and here's the timing, and here's how you can best work with it. Here are some possible outcomes. But in terms of like solid predictions, I really hate that word in astrology, because astrology provides the cosmic climate, the astro weather, and as I mentioned, we work with that. So it's not like a super accurate predictive tool, if I'm going to be fair.
It's not set in stone.
It's not set in stone.
We still have free will, even astrologically, because so much is happening in the universe in terms of planetary positioning, weather, whatever else is affecting it. I don't know probably the right language for it, because I'm not specializing, but I'm assuming just as it is for psychics, you still have free will and things are still fluid, because there's so many dependent factors that, even though I'm reading this person in this moment, and I always say this, if I tell you go left, Tash, go left, because that's where your path is showing me all these wonderful things are going to happen, and you go out the door and go, I think I'm going to turn right just to see what's going on. And that just changes everything. So there's also that, the free will of a person.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. And sometimes we know we need to go left,
Yeah.
Our ego or whatever it is will steer us right. And we
100%.
need to learn the lesson. And astrology is very much, it's not there to punish you, but it's there to assist and support in your personal growth. Because I think that that's really why we're here on Earth. And you can use astrology as a tool. You can get guidance from a psychic when you really are stuck. And I've done that myself. I think there are beautiful times to go and see a psychic, and there are other times when I, want to make those decisions based on the cosmic climate myself.
Yeah.
But yes, we do have that free will available to us.
Yeah. Are there any specific periods that people should be mindful of, e.g., Mercury?
Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, my favorite time.
Yeah, it's notorious. Look, I think Mercury retrograde can also be worked with really positively.
Yeah.
So when any planet actually goes retrograde, and we've got Mars retrograde at the moment, which is kind of more difficult, more challenging than Mercury, because Mars retrograde is our most rare retrograde. Mars represents our energy, our drive, our motivation. And when any planet goes retrograde, it means it's symbolically moving backwards.
Yeah.
It doesn't literally do that. It's actually an optical illusion, but it's how we from Earth are viewing this planetary movement. So it affects us energetically. And when it does that, everything that planet represents in astrology, so in Mercury's case, that is communication, our intellect, information, technology, that internalizes. All right, it goes backwards, but it internalizes. So it is a really beautiful space to go into hermit zone. So when I was in hermit zone writing my book, it was a Mercury retrograde. And it was so supportive for that. But had Mercury been, full steam ahead, I would have found that nearly impossible to have achieved that, that beautiful solitude. So it's also a wonderful time, Mercury in retrograde, to declutter, to purge, in preparation for when it's going to go direct, when it's going to forward flow again, and we're going to be moving forward. So in a way, we need these cycles. We need the retrograde cycles, because if life was always full steam ahead, it would not give us the opportunity for reflection, to release, to purge, all of that stuff. But then let's be real, Mercury retrograde can be really bloody frustrating.
Nasty, ask me. Could be nasty.
It can be a little nasty, and it always gets me. I'm a Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini. So every time, the emails will go MIA, or technology trips you up, or you say something that possibly you shouldn't have said.
Sign something you shouldn't have signed.
Yes, that's exactly right. The rule of thumb is that you don't sign contracts, or even make a verbal agreement, or even make a big decision like breaking up from a relationship during a Mercury retrograde.
Everything on hold, guys, everything.
However, sometimes, and this, like, poor people, they hear this from astrologers who will say, and there is some, like anything, and you would relate to this, Alla, with psychics, astrologers, especially in this space, there are some people who are just they don't have, I won't say a strong moral code, but they are unaware of the subtleties of how to express their talents and how to guide people. And, some astrologers will say to people they have a bad chart, which is absolute rubbish. And that's another, thing we can talk about. But, with psychics, you've got to be very sensitive in how you deliver the information.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. I can't even remember what tangent I went down there and what point I was trying to make. Oh yeah, with Mercury retrograde. Okay, so it does have its shadow side, and it can trip you up, and it can be difficult, but it does not mean that you should not sign a contract or have an operation if you really need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really important for a responsible astrologer to highlight that, you know when you have a choice in the matter and you can work with the astrology that way. You know when it's possibly dangerous
Yeah.
to you know, to not move ahead. And sometimes we have to move ahead in that environment because there's a reason for it. Maybe you do make that decision to leave an unhealthy, potentially violent relationship during a Mercury retrograde, because maybe there are issues there. And often with a retrograde, when you do, it's not the end of the world. It just might mean that you have to revisit that. There might be a redo involved. You might just have to go back over old ground. So it's not really the end of the world. You know, things are not going to all crumble and disintegrate if you do move forward on a Mercury retrograde with those document signings and so on. It just might mean a redo for some reason, and there might be a very valid reason for that.
Yeah. Moving away from Mercury, because we know Mercury can be good, but can be nasty too.
Yeah.
How do planetary alignments influence global events? So now we're going global rather than personal.
Yes. Well, an astrologer would simply look at the transits, we call them, the planetary movements through the zodiac, and the connections between the other planets. I think specifically with the outer planets, so the slower moving planets, when they make a big change, when they change zodiac signs, then we do tend to get an effect on a collective level. And I tend to look at things, you know, there's the collective influence, but then there's also the personal influence. And that is down to, yes, for example, Neptune in Aries is one example that spells conflict out in the world. But for you, it depends how it's triggering your chart. So you may not be personally involved in that conflict that we're going to see on the political landscape in the world. For you, that Neptunian transit, if it is connecting with a certain point in your chart, let's say it's connecting with Neptune in your chart, in you know, through an angle, that could mean an incredible spiritual awakening. So there are different interpretations depending on how a planetary transit is going to trigger your personal chart to how it may necessarily work in the world.
Right. Okay. Is there anything on a global scale that, you know, any major astrological events happening this year that we need to be aware of that you've already read? Anything?
So much, so much.
Anything like, I mean, I know we don't have like hours, but like if you've got something that's big that you want to share, please do.
Okay, well, 2025 is a game-changing landmark year. It's huge. And the reason I say that is because all of the outer planets are changing signs. This is so, so rare to have all of them changing zodiac signs. Of course, we have just had Pluto enter Aquarius at the end of last year, but Pluto will spend its first full year in Aquarius this year. So I'm going to include Pluto in there as well. So for a start, we've got Neptune's entering Cancer for the first time in 12 years. Saturn's entering Aries for the first time in 29 years. Neptune's entering Aries for the first time in 164 years. Uranus is entering Gemini for the first time in 84 years. And then that's it. And then did I mention Neptune? Yes, I did. And then Pluto in Aquarius, the first full year in Aquarius in 1779.
Whoa.
Yes, so huge. This is going to be a year of change, and I you know, I don't want to freak people out, but change is often uncomfortable. I don't see it being an easy year, but please remember that how it affects your personal chart, you know, the collective interpretation may not apply to you personally. This is a collective reading now. But
general, guys, general.
Yes, yes. So with Neptune and Saturn both entering Aries, Aries is the sign of warfare, the military. So I think, you know, what we are already seeing out in the world in terms of, you know, what's happening politically and in the Middle East, I do think that we'll see that escalate and spread. On a positive note, Neptune and Saturn are going to bring about incredible medical advancements. Aries also rules the blood, so I think we'll see a lot of advancements in blood work and pathology.
Wow.
Yes, but these two, when they get together, Saturn is about the boundaries and Neptune dissolves everything. So we're going to see like a dismantling of the old guard, a dismantling of the structures with which we have grown used to living by. And that is going to call for a rebuilding, kind of, it's going to be rebuilding from the ground up. And we're already seeing this with LA.
Yeah.
We do see the influence of such a big planetary move months, sometimes a year beforehand. Aries is a fire sign. So, very sadly, the LA is burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
It will be a huge focus on rebuilding, and it won't be the same LA that it was.
And it's a really good saying, I say, death of the old, rebirth of the new.
Yes.
Very much like we're finishing off with what was, and there's a rebirth of this new version of the world, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yes.
especially what's been targeted. So that's how I've seen it from a psychic perspective. But yeah, even the fact that that's overlapped astrologically is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a beautiful way to describe it. But life is cyclic. And even when you look at the lunar phases with the waxing and the waning, and the waning phase, the balsamic phase, is that phase where sort of things need to be released and wither and die symbolically. But then there's the birth of the new moon and another new cycle. So we live, there are cycles upon cycles upon cycles, and that's what astrology is all about. And then I do see, on a more positive note, because I've got a Sagittarius rising, so I like to keep it positive. We've got Jupiter moving into Cancer, and Cancer's the sign of, very much the divine feminine. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So I think, and Jupiter is a planet that supports, it expands, it uplifts. And I think we'll see a lot of support for women's voices growing louder, and also support for victims of domestic violence. Cancer is also the sign of the family unit and the home, domesticity. And so Jupiter is also the planet that rules legal matters. So we could see a legal win here in this space. And I think we'll see a bit of a housing boom, addressing the housing crisis with lots of houses, apartments, big kind of complexes popping up out of nowhere with this Jupiter in Cancer as well. Yes, so that's just some of it.
I love it. Well, that's that, guys. This is something we needed to, we've got the first-hand knowledge here. So, it's better to know and have that guidance than to kind of go in and, be blindsided. So it's great to have that and just be prepared. I always like to be prepared. You never know. Do you use astrology in your own personal life as well?
No.
I'm curious. People ask whether I do my own readings. So I'm going to ask you whether you do your own astrology.
Do you? Because I'd like to know the answer.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you do?
I do.
Fearless.
It's funny because when I started, obviously, as when we start in this practice, you're not sure whether what you're getting is real,
Yeah.
It's real. Maybe I need to speak to someone who's really good at this to tell me that what I picked up was right. And so I would do my own readings, and then I would go see this amazing psychic. And then as soon as I realized she was reading the same as what I pick up, you gain confidence over time. You're like, oh, okay, well, I can do this. Like, that's okay. So I'm wondering if that happened to you as well, or do you do your own readings now, or do you go to someone else, or what do you do?
Look, I do. I mean, I do
astrology.
I don't look at it every day, but I certainly, I can't help myself. It's the curious Gemini, right? But it's that thing about seeing something challenging approaching, and then sometimes I really wish I didn't know. But then I have to lean into my own advice that I would give, clients or people listening, that you have to work with the energy. And for that, I'm very grateful. I had Saturn moving through my 12th house, and it only does that once every 12 years. And that was a few years ago. And that was a time when I felt because I'm just someone who I'm very passionate. I love life.
Yeah.
And I'm very buoyant. So for me to go into a dark place mentally is unusual. And but I did. And I was there for about 2.5 years, which is how long Saturn sort of spends in that in each house.
Damn Saturn.
And yeah, and I was struggling mentally. And so I looked to the chart and I knew how to best use that. And although it didn't completely, you know, I didn't go from feeling down and depressed to feeling like I could conquer the world,
Related. Yeah.
it did temper the energy. You know, we have a saying in my astrology group, the AAAC, the Australian Academy of Astrology and Cosmobiology, use the energy or be used by it. So if you use the energy in a positive way, it's less likely to sort of turn back on you in a negative way. So I knew what to do, and I went and volunteered my time in an old person's home and
Wow.
spend some time there and use that energy really positively in that way. And you can do that with any sort of planetary transit that's challenging. So
Well, I love that.
the answer is kind of yes and no to your question.
Tell us a little bit more about your amazing book that you
Oh,
recently published. I want you to tell everyone about it and also where they can get a copy if they're, I mean, I will put the link in underneath, but I definitely want you to let them know where they can also get it. But first, let us know a little bit about it.
oh goodness. Okay, well, thank you. It's
In
called,
in a nutshell.
in a nutshell, I know that's going to be
I
difficult.
know you're like,
Well, it's called Your Celestial Compass. And I really started writing this book as a sun sign book because I felt that's something that everybody could relate to. So I went into a deep dive into the 12 signs of the zodiac. And, you know, I'm just going to veer off a little bit because I am a sun sign astrologer in my work, in terms of my media work. And by sun sign astrology, I mean like the 12 signs of the zodiac and the horoscopes and so on, rather than looking at the birth
they're the
chart.
ones I like, by the way, because I get it.
What was that? I missed that.
They're the ones I like because I get
Oh,
it.
yes. And that's it. Thank you. That's exactly right. And that's who I show up for. I
Yeah.
show up for people like you, Alla, because they're the people that I want to teach that astrology is more. But let's start here. Let's start by like really unraveling your sun sign and really understanding it, not just the cookie cutter kind of version of your sign, but let's go a little bit deeper into the calling of your sign and, you know, the shadow side of your sign and how you can best work with that. So that is one huge part of the book is just the 12 sign, honoring the 12 signs of the zodiac. I go into the personality, you know, and our challenges and our love language and our sex style and health and wellness and even your fashion style for a bit of fun. Your crystal I talk about and self-love mantra, all about using that sun sign to its best and brightest. But then I had to, the book evolves as books often do, I'm told. I went into the moon. Everybody loves the moon. I love the moon, mesmerized by the moon. So I wanted to explain about the moon and its role in astrology and people's lives. So I've also done that and gone into a deep dive into the 12 moon signs as well. And I've done the same for the rising, and I've done the same for the midheaven, which is the zenith of our chart, and it represents our vocation, our calling at our highest potential. I've also explained about the moon's nodes and all of the moon's nodes placement. So basically, if you know your sun sign only, you can read the book and get a lot of information about yourself. If you know more than that, if you know your moon sign, your north and south nodes, other sort of placements, your rising, your midheaven, then you can layer up all of this information, kind of like a birth chart reading in a way from the book. But then, and I go into what a birth chart is, just break it down really simply so that if you do get a birth chart, and I will be offering free birth charts coming very soon, little scoop there, then you can really kind of break it down for yourself. But in the last part of the book, I go into the planetary cycles according to someone's age and stage of their life. So I talk about Saturn's return and how you might experience your first and second, possibly even your third Saturn return. So Saturn returns to its natal position, so the position it was in when you were born, every 29 or so years. And this brings certain challenges and certain opportunities. And if we know about this and we know where Saturn is placed in our chart as well, we can really work with this to our highest potential. And I've done that for Saturn and also the Jupiter cycles, which bring in the lucky cycles. They're the cycles of luck. So this is important to know, because if you're going to go for something where you need a bit of luck on your side,
Yeah.
to know if you're in a, in a Jupiter cycle at that age of your life. So you don't even need to know your birth chart for this last part. You just need to know your age. And then you can look up and see what Jupiter cycle you're in. And the same with Uranus. When Uranus hits opposite its birth position, it's usually around the age of 41. We call this in astrology Uranus opposition. And this is very much like the midlife crisis. Uranus is the rebel planet. This is where we see the men rock up in their, I hate to be really gender stereotypical here,
but please do.
I'm just explaining my point. The men rock up in their sports car and their young girlfriend, and maybe the women with their toy boys. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? You never know.
It doesn't matter however you choose to express that inner rebellion. Uranus speaks to that, but there are also 7-year cycles within these big planetary cycles that it's just helpful to understand where you're at in that cycle to best use it.
I had one done by you many, many years ago, and I pulled it out ready to read it again today.
Really?
Yes. Like a long time ago. And I remember I got it done because I really wanted it done. So I had it emailed to me and I was like, okay, I'm going to look at it. And I looked at it, I read it, and I don't know if I quite understood, because I was going through my journey at the time as well. So there was a lot of downloads, a lot happening. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to come back to this. And I put it away and then I couldn't find it. And then I don't know what happened. Then a few months ago, I was like, I've got to find Tasha's birth chart. Like, I know she did it for me. She did it this astrological reading for me. I need it. And I found it and I couldn't believe it. So I'm like, I've got it next to my bedside table and I'm going to definitely reread it again, because that doesn't change, does it? Because that's your birth chart. So
that is yes, that's just your birth chart, which is your blueprint, So
my blueprint, exactly. That's what you called it, the blueprint. So I'm going to reread that over again and definitely have a look at any other astrological readings that I need. So I'll go to your website, which you will let us know in a moment. Last question before we're done. Can you give us one piece of astrological advice that you like? What's one piece of astrological advice you would give everyone delving into this area?
I would, just the first thing that pops into my head would be to understand that you are so much more than your sun sign. And also, I want to say that if you do have challenging aspects and patterns in your birth chart, that they are your greatest blessings. And I have seen many, many charts over the decades that I've been studying astrology, and it is the charts with the biggest challenges that transform people, or can have the ability to transform people into their greatest version of themselves, because those challenges push you to evolve and to develop and to grow. And if you meet those challenges, don't be scared by them, but if you meet them, then all of those opportunities are available to you. That's what our birth charts are there to teach us.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tash. Astrotash, if you want to find her on Instagram, it's Astrotash. Can you please give us any other links if anyone wants to get in touch with you or find your book? Please do share it now with everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. I would steer people to buy the book on Amazon. Just go to Amazon, Your Celestial Compass by Natasha Weber, because in all honesty, it's cheapest there.
Okay. And I've seen it in bookstores as well, by the way.
Oh, I mean, it is everywhere. If you go to the Penguin website, sorry, it has all of the locations and online spots where you can get it, but it is in all good bookstores nationwide. I even saw it at the airport the other day, which was a bit.
Oh, how nice is that?
Yeah, but if you just want to grab it really quickly, just pop onto Amazon, or even Big W have it for the same price as Amazon. So that's pretty good. Yeah.
Amazing. Natasha Weber, thank you so much for your time. for sharing your journey and your beautiful energy with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Can I just say as well that
Yes.
if people want to, because I'm really excited about this free birth chart I've got coming
Yes,
up.
please do share it. Please, please, please.
If they subscribe to my free newsletter, which will be coming out, I haven't got it out yet, but then I will be announcing that free birth chart. And I really want people to have these charts because then they'll understand all of their placements. Even if they can't read a chart, it'll be all written underneath and they will know, and then they can follow and grow with the astrology.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Look how kind she is, guys. Oh my God, you're so kind. Thank you so much. You are such a beautiful soul. Thank you for sharing a journey on the Soul Diary. Thank you.
Love you, Alla. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
Love
for
you
being
too.
on.
Mwah. Thank you.
Bye, darling.
Bye.